Wow. Hi. So we come together today on the traditional territories of the Kwangan peoples, today known as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. And as a guest on these lands, I humbly and respectfully welcome you here today. Through our work and actions in support of art and artists, I hope to continue to demonstrate our gratitude. My name is Margaret Krumka. I'm the Director of Visitor Experience and Programs, and it's my life's dream, immense gratitude, pleasure to introduce Meryl McMaster and Tarah Hogue, two arts professionals that I have respected the entirety of my career. I thank you all very much for joining us today. Yesterday's event at UVic with Meryl, and Tarah was in attendance as well, saw about 200 students and community members gather. And today's event, which is full to capacity, and I see we have opened up the Kirli, really speaks to the connection that Meryl's work, guided by Tarah's curatorial work, makes with us. I want to thank the Canada Council for the Arts and the BC Arts Council for their support, and my many colleagues here at the gallery who have worked in a multitude of capacities. Every single person at the gallery has worked in some way to help us realize this talk today, along with the members of the Leadership Circle, the Gallery Associates, and the AGGV Board of Directors, which provide guidance and support. I thank you for that. So the format, you guys are so quiet. The format of this afternoon's talk will be a conversation about Meryl's work with Tarah, and then an opportunity for a few questions, 4 or 5 questions at the end. I said 3 or 4. Yeah, 3 or 4. 3 or 4 questions following this talk. And then there'll be a reception out in the mansion lobby. I also encourage you, the exhibition Bloodline continues until October 19th. I encourage you to visit it along with Architectures of Protection and Lekwungen, A Place to Smoke Herring, that continue until October 26th. So I could talk quite a long time about how reputable these two people are. So I'm going to do this as thoughtfully and briefly as I can. Tarah Hogue is a curator, writer, and cultural worker based in Treaty 6 and 7 territories, and the Métis homeland today, also referred to as Saskatchewan. Hogue's practice is grounded in relational geographies, attending to how people and artworks shape and are shaped by the territories they belong to and move through. Hogue is currently the adjunct curator at the Remai Modern, and her past roles include curatorial fellowships at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and here at the AGGV. Her upcoming exhibition, Diani White Hawk, Love Language, is co-curated with Siri Engberg, opens next month at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. And then we'll be touring on to the Remai Modern. So if you want to stay in Canada, you can visit it there. Hogue is of McMichael. I don't know why I threw that in.
No, that's great. Please come.
Some people will care, some people won't. Tarah is a citizen of the Métis Nation of Alberta with relatives from the communities of St. Charles and St. Francois Xavier in Manitoba. Meryl McMaster attended OCAD-U, Ontario College of Art and Design University, and earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Photography in 2010. She's currently based in Quebec, close to Ottawa. Her large format self-portraits explore questions of self through land, lineage, history, and culture, with specific reference to her mixed Nihaya, Plains Cree, British, and Dutch ancestry. Meryl's work has been the subject of solo exhibitions at, and to name a few, and I warned Meryl I would only say the institutions that I thought were relevant. The Heard Museum, the Remai Modern, the McMichael Canadian Art Collection, Urban Shaman, McCord Museum, Canada House London, Glenbow Museum, and Smithsonian National Museum of American Indian, New York. And that's maybe a quarter of the institutions of solo exhibitions. Her work also has appeared in group exhibitions across North America, Europe, and in Australia. Meryl is the recipient of numerous awards, including the King Charles III's Coronation Medal, Scotiabank New Generation Photography Award, the Reveal Indigenous Art Award. She was shortlisted for the Rencontre d'Arles New Discovery Award 2019, the Prix de la Photo Madame Figaro Arles 2019, and longlisted for the 2016 Sobey Art Award. Very prestigious. Meryl is represented by Stephen Bulger Gallery in Toronto and Pierre-François Houlette, Art Contemporain in Montreal. Meryl is a citizen of the Siksika Nation in Alberta, and her family is also from Red Pheasant Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. So, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the talk.
Kishi Marcy, Margaret, for that very generous introduction to us both. And I just want to say to you all, Tanche Kiawao, Namieten and Wapametek. It's good to see you all today. Thank you very much for coming. So, as we were preparing for our conversation today, it gave me an opportunity to reflect on the past conversations that Meryl and I have been occasioned to have through the touring of this exhibition. When the show came to Remai Modern, we had the very special opportunity of being in conversation together at the Poundmaker Museum and Gallery. And in that space, Poundmaker is a brother community to Red Pheasant, where Meryl's family is from. So in that space, the conversation felt very familiar and intimate. And while not everyone in the audience may have been familiar with Meryl's practice, they certainly related to it on a very deep level. And for me, it gave me a new, more embodied understanding of the photographs and the places that Meryl chooses to depict in her practice. A little bit later down the road, we found ourselves at the Heard Museum in Phoenix, which was a completely different landscape to that of your home territory. And I suspect that for the audience, although the Heard's audience is very much invested in Native art, per the Heard's purview, I suspect that many were sort of introduced to Meryl's work for the first time there, and potentially to the landscapes that you represent. Although there are a lot of Canadians down in Arizona. And here today at the AGGV, I feel like we might be somehow in a bit of a middle ground. Obviously, this is a packed house, and there's a lot of enthusiasm for your work here. And later we'll have a chance to hear from you about what brought you here today. And maybe some of you are familiar with Meryl's practice, and maybe it's new to you. But I wanted to start by asking, you've been on this journey with this exhibition through 6 venues now, and it will continue on after this. What has it been like for you to witness this body of work? And I'm thinking, of course, particular of your newest series, Stories of My Grandmothers, in motion, you know, shifting in these different spaces and contexts.
It's been quite a journey. You know, the exhibition started at McMichael Canadian Art Collection just outside of Toronto, and then got to move out to Saskatchewan, to the Remai, and then out to Alberta, to the Glenbow. You know, it's interesting how it's kind of being introduced to like new eyes and these new landscapes and new communities. I mean, specifically when it went out west to the prairies, I mean, it definitely felt like it was coming home, especially to those landscapes where I photograph a lot in. So, I mean, and I was able to have family members come and see some of my work for the first time. And and obviously have a very personal connection to some of my more recent work in the exhibition. So that opportunity that, has been created between the collaboration of the two museums has been wonderful, just on a personal level, just to bring that exhibition to those places. Mm-hmm. And then the exhibition traveled to Arizona, to Phoenix. So that was, as you said, like such a different landscape. Even though I felt obviously very much like a visitor, I think that, there are similarities in shared histories a bit. So I think that it was another important space to have the work go. And I think, even though I guess my works are, can be quite intimate in some ways, to my own personal history and myself. But yet I hope in my works, they can also be kind of far reaching and have these opportunities to travel to, these different places and, but also kind of hold resonance, with people from all walks of life. So I think, it's been such a lovely and wonderful experience and meaningful experience just to have it reach so many different people. And though I don't always get to like chat with the visitors, this is kind of a rare opportunity. Usually I go at the opening and I get to chat with, a small group of people. But I mean, especially this couple days, I've been able to talk with a lot more people, which doesn't happen as often. So that's nice too. As an artist, I think I work predominantly alone, and I don't have much, in a sense, like interaction with, people outside my family and friends, and so like I kind of obviously create these images that are kind of creating conversations with people like you who are sitting here today, though, but I never meet you. So
I remember when we were at the Heard Museum, the opening of your exhibition coincided with the First Fridays event, which in Phoenix is this massive citywide art and culture party. There's streets are closed off with food trucks, and all of the small museums and galleries are open to the public. And so there was just this massive influx of people through the exhibition. And, similarly to you as a curator, when you're touring a show, you often sort of drop into a place for a very short period of time, and there's a flurry of activities with talks and openings, and it's all really wonderful and really intense. But you do get to see, you do get to witness sort of snippets of conversation of people who are experiencing the work. And at the different venues that we've been to, I've witnessed people who are familiar with your work sort of excitingly sharing it with someone else. But I've also witnessed the way in which first-time viewers are sort of drawn in by the beauty of your work. And it's shown me, I think, how inviting your work is for different people. And one of the most impactful responses that I think we've both experienced is from Bella Watney, who's a relative of Meryl's.
Yeah, or Elsie.
Elsie, sorry.
It's okay.
Bella, grandmother.
That's okay.
Elsie married into Meryl's family on Red Pheasant and knew your grandmother. And she gave a wonderful welcome at the opening at Remai Modern. But after she had seen the exhibition, she made us all cry by expressing how deeply your work has really honored the lives of your grandmothers and the women from Red Pheasant. So that was really special. And I think that when you see the new body of work in the exhibition, you will get a sense of that deeply personal lineage that you're bringing forward. So I thought we could continue by focusing on the newest body of work in the exhibition. For me, because this is a survey exhibition of Meryl's work of the past 15 years of her practice, but it has this new substantial body of work. And so it kind of feels like an exhibition within an exhibition to me a little bit. And so, well, before we look at the first image, maybe you can just talk a little bit about what catalyzed this body of work.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was in talks with McMichael, with Sarah Milroy, who's one of the co-curators on the exhibition, it kind of originally was just planned for previously, our kind of older work of mine. But as an artist, you're kind of, I showed a lot of some of that older work. So I wanted to create new work. And I had been kind of, on a personal, kind of exploration of family stories. My grandmother and my uncle, my dad's eldest brother, passed away very, close together several years ago. But with his brothers and his youngest brother all passed away, he came into possession of photographs and some written material of one of my grandmothers, and kind of some personal possessions. And it was an interesting experience with my dad. He and my parents were living in Saskatchewan at the time, and I remember I went and visited them, and he had just got this box of stuff that was just, kind of randomly kind of placed together, and just like going through everything with him, kind of for the first time. He had been seeing even some photographs for the first time. And so it was really, again, on a personal note, it was really special. I was, I had known one of my grandmother, my dad's mom, but I hadn't known kind of further back in that line, my great grandmother, my great great grandmother, and so it kind of this moment of looking through all these different materials with him, it was kind of bringing back memories for him, and he was, telling me some stories, especially of my great grandmother, Bella Wetney. Because she basically raised him growing up, and so and I'd always heard really fond memories of her through my dad. So I never necessarily thought this was actually going to become something I'd be inspired by for my work, but it kind of, I think it was a year since kind of discovering these things that I kind of thought that it could be something that I could kind of give voice to within my practice. And I was especially struck by two things that were part of this collection of items. And one was a diary that my great grandmother Bella had written over a year. She wrote every day for a year. She's very committed, and it was just very simple sentences, just talking about everyday life on the res. So, gardening, looking after kids, hauling wood. A lot of it was like searching for horses, visiting with family members, and talking about the weather. I know, like, there was many entries like where it was a very cold day today, another very cold day today. And another entry for like 2 weeks where she talked about how many eggs she collected every day. So maybe there wasn't so much going on socially for her, but the eggs were a real, standout moment. Mm-hmm. But so it didn't, that little piece of that collection of writings, didn't necessarily give me a glimpse into her kind of soul in a sense, but it was like, wasn't an emotional kind of piece of writing, but it gave me a glimpse into a bit of her life and in that year's time. And she even wrote on in the back of this little diary, I'm assuming a song that came on the radio or that she liked, and it was Brand on My Heart by Hank Snow. And so actually in one of the films in the exhibition, I commissioned a fiddle player to do like a abstract kind of interpretation of that song, because I couldn't get copyright rights to it, though I tried. But so in one of the films, you can hear a fiddle kind of plucking away, and also that there are a lot of fiddle musics played in my family at certain times, and so that's a nod to that. But so, anyways, I really loved this little diary, and then there was a letter that she wrote in her late 70s that was in remarkable condition, and a few pages, but it was like addressed to no one. And it's in the exhibition space, so you can have a chance to read it on your own time if you wish. But it was kind of reflecting on her life, talking about how she'd been widowed at a young age and with several children. And then it kind of goes into talking about just her kind of frustration and kind of despair, I guess, a bit of like trying to get some assistance, government assistance of money she was owed, because she desperately wanted to build like a little house of her own. And she never ended up getting that money, but she had to sell off, her belongings and all her livestock or cattle in order to build this house. But this letter, had a very different voice than this little diary. And so anyways, this pairing of words that, she had created, was really interesting little window again into her life. And so anyways, this series is trying to kind of piece together these different fragments that I have, and trying to kind of myself, I guess, kind of build their memory through these works and form these kind of connections and memories of them. And because I feel like they lived through, these three women, lived through, a lot that happened in history. They lived through, the Indian Act in the residential school system. And one of my great-great-grandmother, through interviewing with family, potentially was a witness to a mass hanging that happened in Battleford, where she was about 15. And the day school kids were forced to go view this hanging of 8 Plains Cree men during the Northwest Rebellion. And anyways, and obviously through dances were outlawed, ceremonies. So they had a very hard life, like many other families, and across this territory. And so I think that it was important that I that I wanted to kind of bring their stories to kind of light through my imagery, because a lot of Indigenous history is ignored and forgotten, and so especially for Indigenous women. So so that was kind of the inspiration for the works, and so I'm pulling on personal stories of them through my own research and talking with family members, and then I'm also like bringing in larger historical events that were happening at the time, and weaving those together. So
It's lovely that in the exhibition you're offered this kind of a key to the works through the inclusion of these family photographs and objects, and it invites you as a viewer to look very closely and to spend time, because the more time that you spend both with the objects and with the photographs, you start to see all of the connections between them. So we're just going to talk about a few images from the series and watch a clip of a video. And so I asked Meryl to choose which images she wanted to talk about, and you chose this one first. And, and I really like that you did, because in many of the works in the exhibition, you're stepping into this persona of your grandmothers, but also of yourself in search of your grandmother's lives in this intimate way. But here, you're becoming a story, but you're also becoming these plants that you are wearing in this armature. And I was wondering if you could, I don't know if you had a deeper reason for choosing this image to start the conversation with, but maybe why you were drawn to that today. And then you can talk a little bit about the story of this.
Yeah, it's hard to choose.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, like, which image to talk about. Maybe because I've given a couple of talks, I'm like, oh, I'll talk about another
Switch it
image,
up.
but I know you guys haven't heard those other ones. So, yeah. So this image, remember the sky you were born under, was inspired again through this diary of my great grandmother Bella, and there was a lot of reference to collecting plants and roots, but not a lot of kind of further explanation of what they were doing with these. But I mean, through talking with my dad and family members, she was still practicing like traditional medicine, and so there was a lot of reference to Seneca root and cattails and mint and rat root, muskeg tea. So I was interested in kind of bringing to life through this kind of wire armature the different representations of these plants that she was talking about, and obviously how important they are. I mean, within traditional medicine, within Nahio culture, but I mean, plants are essential for all human life, and so our relationship with the natural world is truly important, and to protect and to have wonder about, and curiosity. And so, but there was a specific plant that I talked to my great aunt Mabel, who also lived in the house for a certain point with my great grandmother and my dad. And she talked about how she remembers helping the grandmas harvest Seneca root, and they would take it into town to sell for money. So it kind of generated a small economy for them. But it was interesting that plant and kind of the involvement of Indigenous peoples to harvest this plant to sell then to pharmaceutical industries. They use this for respiratory illnesses, specifically for pneumonia. And this was around the First World War that this was happening, and they're really involved in this. So it was kind of interesting to hear a bit of the history of that plant and kind of my family and other families' kind of involvement in that. And then I'm holding this. I guess you can kind of see this. I mean, it looks like a cross, but it's actually a digging shovel implement. But I kind of wanted it to have that double meaning. But I had been looking through kind of archival imagery and other imagery, and there's a local artist that Alan Sapp, who's quite well known, that comes from Red Pheasant, and he was a painter and painted a lot of, again, just daily life that happened on the reserve, and I found a painting that he had done. I think it's titled "Digging Seneca Root" or "Digging Seneca," and so it's like these women, kind of in a field, and they're kind of bent over, and then one of the women has this shovel, this kind of this shovel that she's holding, and so anyways, I kind of wanted to include that in the image in some way, and I obviously did my own take on it, I mean, I included, it's hard to see, but I included some of the writings of my grandmother on the shovel and
a photograph of your eyes looking at us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, like here, obviously I'm like interacting and interacting with kind of these seeds and these plants, but I kind of snuck in like, you know, just that presence of, you know, that interaction with the viewer. Yeah. So, and then I kind of had this pollen falling all over me. It was actually freeze-dried pineapple, and so it was kind of a mistake because the mosquitoes loved me, and so I don't know. I think I had to Photoshop out some bug bites, so because they were just all over. But it was delicious. But yeah, so
well, I love that you chose this image to start the conversation with because of the title. Remember the sky you were born under. And the sky is not the subject of the work, but it is very present. And for me, the naming of the sky kind of speaks to the way that your photographs collapse time. And we'll talk a bit more about that afterward. But, you know, you're acknowledging the sky as this kind of constant presence in a place that connects you across generations to your grandmothers. So we're going to play a clip of the video, one of the videos in the exhibition called I Awake to You, and then we'll chat about it after.
Iggy Aimak. It was difficult. It was difficult. You have questions we can't answer, but don't fear what you already know. We've spent too long fearing ourselves while getting robbed by strangers. Don't you see? We are beauty. We live above the clouds, Spimik. We awake to you, and we are with you always. Giskese, nosim, giskese. Remember, granddaughter. Remember, grandchild. Remember. We live above the clouds. Spimik. Spimik. We live above the clouds. You have questions we can't answer, but don't fear what you already know. We've spent too long fearing ourselves while getting robbed by strangers. Don't you see? We are beauty. We live above the clouds, Spimmy. We awake to you, and we are with you always. To survive, we had to live off the land. A place of promise, we were told. I was told wait, but still cold. Xenak, Itachaya. Still invisible, still waiting, and have given up hope. But now you're our hope. Kiawaoma, Gaspintota. We are more than what they say and more than what we have imagined. Find your way from darkness. Remember, Nosin, Giskise, Giskise. The grass grows deep.
Can you talk a little bit about the photographs and the place in this clip and the stories that they hold?
Yeah. So the films, I mean, kind of, bring to life the photographs. So you'll notice, like, when you see the exhibition, that there are some, kind of the costumed elements that you'll see in photographs as well. So, but yeah, with this story, I guess within the film, so there's a tree that is featured in the film, and it's kind of an important tree for my family. It's so the house that my dad grew up in was basically like right beside that tree. And I mean, when he was born, I don't even think he was born, it was there, but they were gifted a tree from a family, and they planted it. One of the
Margaret's acorn.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of trees.
Yes, that's good for that. So there's a tree planted outside this house, and the house is no longer there, but the tree is, and it's this like massive tree. And so, I mean, I just have memories of, I mean, my uncle and my cousins, they have houses really near here. So whenever we go visit them, it's always like the trek to the tree that my dad wants to like go say hi. And So I have a lot of, like memories of kind of walking to that tree. And so it was something that I wanted to feature in the film because it's an important place to me. And, this marker of memory and time and I mean, all around it now is farmers' fields. So the landscape has really completely changed. But this tree is still there. So, yeah. So, I mean, and in the film, most of it's taken place like right around where this all is, where my dad grew up. So you'll see there's like bulrushes that I lie on and kind of a little pond or whatnot behind. And I mean, yeah, it's again stories of him playing around there, riding horses. My dad, there was big gardens they had. And so yeah, there's a lot of, family memories there. So I wanted to feature that landscape in the film. And then, it's funny to hear the sounds because there were so many amazing sounds when we were there at this like early evening hour. So we had a lot of fun recording the sounds. And so I heard the coyote kind of like calling. And I don't know if you heard that, but I heard it and it kind of sounds like one of my kids. I'm kind of like, oh, like where's my, but calling off for me. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else I was going to say about that. But what else was I going to say?
we can keep it going. I mean, the work is obviously deeply personal and tied to family stories. And you're at the end, you're clasping a photograph. I think of the three generations of your grandmothers with your Uncle Howard.
My Uncle Howard. Yes.
Yeah. And for me, I think the reason that I get emotional every time I watch this film is because while it is so deeply personal, the story that you're sharing, the sentiment that you're sharing through the narrative that is spoken by Maria Campbell, just resonates so deeply with the like really profound experiences of loss and of hardship and the grief that our families hold from that. But it's also such a profound gesture of love, and a gesture of love that you are offering to yourself through the voice of this spirit or this ancestor that we hear speaking in the film, and which I feel is so healing, even while it sort of holds pain within it. And the speaker, as I said, that we hear is Maria Campbell, the esteemed author and playwright and elder. And I've been curious to ask you about your collaboration with her, and if it was a collaboration, did you work together to develop the narrative, or what kinds of conversations did you have about this work? Because I know that she would have such a lot to say about.
I'm gonna make me cry because I just think of like, I won't share it with you, but she was very like, I mean, when I showed her the films, like she was just like, the kindest, person. And I mean, my so kind of separate from this exhibition, but it ended up kind of happening parallel. But I had an opportunity to have this wonderful, amazing book created with the Magenta Foundation. So I think is it here at this space? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Anyways.
In the gift shop?
In the gift shop. Anyways. But I had the opportunity to ask some people to write for the book, and you kind of put out a wish list of people, and I was able. I don't know how I got her contact because I'd been an admirer from afar, but I was able to get in contact with her and ask her if she might write something for the book, and she was like very willing and excited, and again, like the sweetest human. So we just got to know each other over that process. Like, and I also she lives out in Saskatchewan. So I went and visited her, and I visited her several times after that, and brought my babies to meet her and stuff. And, but yeah, and I, anyways, I went out on a limb and asked if she might, narrate some of the parts in the 2 films, as kind of the voice of my grandmothers. And again, she was very gracious with her time, and she said she would do it. So, so I wrote kind of the, script, I guess, for the film, and, kind of sent it to her. I knew I wanted, some Nehiyawewin, spoken, but I'm still learning myself. So, and she's, a great speaker herself. So, so I kind of sent it to her, and then we kind of had this back and forth where, she would add elements and help me with that. And then even when we went to record, we were still like working on it, and she'd be like, how about I say this like twice or whatever. She kind of added her own little spin on some of her parts, and which was, it was wonderful. We just recorded like in her office, and so I mean, it's been so many people have relationships with her, like artists, and so it's like I think I just feel lucky to have had a moment with her, to kind of work on a couple of these different projects, and and kind of call her a friend, and so and it definitely gets me still emotional, like even when I don't know if you're supposed to get emotional at your own work, but I mean, when I hear her voice and stuff, it definitely like just conjures up those teary ducts.
Yes.
So I get it.
Well, that was kind of a selfish question for myself, but that's, I think that is a good connection to talking about a little bit more about the process of creating the films, which is obviously a new avenue for you in your practice. And while I think collaboration is an aspect of your image making, it certainly is a very central part of making these films. So maybe you could speak a little bit about that and what that process of collaboration has opened up for you within your work.
Yeah, it was, I think for a while I wanted to, kind of work in film, and when I photographed some of my images, I've experimented with trying to film myself, but obviously my camera's on a tripod, so they're not the most interesting. They're just like, just static shots of me,
Yeah.
And I kind of, wanted to have more movement with the camera, and so anyways, but so it also took a while I knew I needed kind of a collaborator, like a filmmaker, someone who knew their way around a camera to help me, and so that, and just trying to find the right fit, because I have to feel like comfortable with someone, and I don't know. I don't know many filmmakers, so I don't come across them that often. But with the McMichael, I had before this whole survey exhibition happened, I had the opportunity to show some of my work in the gallery space, and they've been working on short films over the years with artists that they show at the museum. And they work with a filmmaker, David Hartman, to do these kind of short films of artists. So he goes to, the studio space, and he interviews you and all that. So I met David through this process, and we'd had a lot of similar life experiences, and we just connected, and he was always like, his film work is all like more documentary. So he'd never done like an art film, not that I needed someone to, but he was like, it sounds interesting. And, like, he was like up for the challenge. And so yeah, it was a very interesting process because I'd never done film before, and it's very different than photography. But I liked how this medium, like, especially when I was working with the stories of my grandmothers and working with all these kind of fragments, and, I felt like film could kind of, kind of work with time in an interesting way. And you can kind of just obviously tell like a bigger story with kind of just a single image. So we like over, I don't know, like several months, kind of did storyboarding. And I mean, he was very like, detail oriented. I mean, I'm sure this is what filmmakers do, but I mean, he had like, like I would say, okay, like well, not that I'd say, but, I'd have kind of a sketch, like, okay, I'm kind of thinking this, and then I'd kind of, like walk and do this. And then, but he was like, okay. But then I might need like a shot of your hand, or, and he'd have all the details to like fill in. Cause I would just kind of have a, like, just kind of this more like one image kind of feeling, and then have a sense. But then he was like, kind of filling in the blanks, because he had to kind of know, kind of have like the shot list, I guess, of like what we needed when we were at these places. And so that really got me thinking in different ways of like, how that kind of behind the scene works. But it was really pretty much like, besides this film shoot, it was just the two of us, and we're very much people, like, we don't like to ask for help. We just do things on our own, and which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, but we had help with this shoot, which is in the beginning of that just clip that we just showed you. And it was just north of where I live in Quebec, and so the guy that was helping us, Mike, was a friend of David's, and he had kind of worked with David before as an assistant, and but we were, trying to find locations of like what I was thinking of. And Mike was like, oh, I have a friend, and he has like acres and acres of land, and, it's not too far of a drive, and, probably like 15-minute walk, like perfect. Like we have like all this gear, we had 3 sleds. Mostly it was like filled with David's camera equipment. And then I had this like awkward stick bundle that I was like pulling along. And, but it had like, obviously like it was, I forget what time of year, but like, I'd have to look back. I can't remember, but it was like deep winter. So, and anyways, this like 15-minute walk, I don't know where he got this 15-minute walk, but it was 2 hours, like trudging through the snow with our sleds. And like, I mean, you can laugh about it now, but in the moment we're just like, oh my God, so we were just like exhausted by the time we got to the site, and we were like losing light. So there's, but yeah, it was super fun. I mean, it was beautiful on the walk back because it was like pitch dark, and like there's no like light bleed from the city where we are. So it was just like amazing, like stargazing. And but yeah, I don't know. It was like, and then we traveled out to Saskatchewan, and I did like two separate times. We traveled out to Saskatchewan to do the 2 different videos. And yeah, it was like, I would do it again. I mean, you kind of have to find the right story, or just, but yeah, it's anyone who does film, like, it's like, I mean, it's just like when you do new things, like you just gain appreciation for all the work that goes into it. And so anyways, you see the bit of behind the scenes, which is very rare for me to capture. So it was nice that Mike was able to like, capture us kind of working
to be there. And we don't show it, but you've got this great image of the sleds full of equipment that you're packing out. And the first shot in the film is this aerial shot of the lake. So with Meryl sort of trudging out into the center. So now every time you see that, you can think of all the equipment that they were hauling.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, this is a still image in the exhibition that connects to the film. And I wanted to linger on that question of time. today when we were in the galleries touring the UVic MFA students through, I asked a question about a couple of works in the exhibition that are in a sort of triptych format. So often you encounter Meryl's images as a singular image. We kind of spoke about the way that it's a little bit of a prelude almost to the film work, because you were thinking about how to show the narrative in the images with a kind of sequence of photographs. And so I really appreciate this relationship between the still and moving images that is emerging through this exhibition, because in your still images, the figures in your photographs always have a very clear and strong sense of purpose and direction. We might not know where that figure is heading, but we know that they're up to something. And I feel like your film works, they're very photographic in a sense as well. They almost feel like a series of kind of like animated vignettes or something. So do you think about photography and video as doing different kinds of temporal work for you, or are they two ways of approaching the same question of time?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, like I mean, again, I like them for different purposes. I mean, with my photographs, I mean, I always see them as like these, because I think when I come up with my ideas, they're usually kind of like a moving image, like a flash, like in my head, and yeah, they're kind of, just kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but I kind of, so it's kind of, with my photographs, it almost feels like it's kind of that that moment taken out of like a bigger kind of storyline, and that allowing the whoever's looking at it to I mean, they might be focused on that image, but I also like the idea that they can kind of imagine like this figure walking off like into that kind of barren landscape, or kind of where did this figure come from, or and kind of going on their own little journey. And I think about just like, anyways, that's how I with my images, I think that's when I look at them, they're kind of that. But with the film, I think I wanted to still leave that, like in the two films, there's not like a necessarily an ending, like, and I kind of, again, like my photographs, like wanted to keep that like open-ended, again, for the viewer to kind of, maybe when they leave the space, like kind of continue that, kind of journey in their head about, where this figure was going, so I think that was an intentional, decision that I made, that I didn't, it wasn't like, and I think like, probably a lot of films are, kind of narrative films are like that. Like there's not necessarily none, like there always could be more story to be told. But anyways, you'll get that sense when you watch it, that,
Okay, I want to end this portion of the conversation by talking about the earliest body of work in the exhibition, which is your ancestral series. And this particular image is not one of the ones that's in the show, but it is from that series. I wanted to include this because, of course, this is a survey exhibition of Meryl's last 15 years. And this is quite a foundational body of work to your practice. It was made while you were still a student at OCAD University, which I think is pretty remarkable. And it was made in collaboration with your father. And here you see Meryl is projecting either historical photographs or paintings onto the body of her father and herself. And then in another aspect of the series there, she is projecting images of animals that hold significance within Nehio culture. So you also recently showed a couple photographs from this series alongside paintings by your father, Gerald McMaster, at QAG. And, this kind of is another nice temporal loop where you're coming full circle to this early body of work that you did with your father. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about what it meant to revisit this work alongside your father's own artworks.
Yeah. This shot was like taken just, I think it was last weekend.
Right.
Yeah. The exhibition at Carleton University Art Gallery is called Runs in the Family. It was, very emotional. I think I'm an emotional person. So I got teary-eyed because we did walkthrough of the exhibition with other artists, and so anyways, my dad was there, and we got to stand side by side, and we'll talk about our own things, but be there together. And my dad started out as an artist, a painter, and I have like really fond memories of like my dad's studio was in our house. And so it had different places in the house, but I was always, welcome to go into his studio space, and he'd always have, big, pieces of plywood up that he'd have his, canvases on, and, he'd be painting, and then, I'd be little wee and would be, he'd roll out a piece of paper, my mom would, and I just would, do my own little paintings beside him. And, I have, really fond memories of that as being a little kid, and, his paintings would be up in our house. So I'd lots of moments like doing homework or eating breakfast where, I was just like staring up at one of his like big paintings and trying to understand like, what was he talking about? Like, like what was going on in his head. And so it was interesting. He eventually, I don't know how old I was, but he eventually moved on and kind of did a curatorial kind of job. I don't know. Gosh, I was like, he just, sorry, I was trying to figure out my wording, but he shifted careers. That's what I was trying to say, and became a curator. And so there was, anyways, a short portion of my life where he was an artist, but when we were talking at the exhibition, he was talking about how these two works were painted in, I think it was like, I don't know, 1988 or 1999. He did some other ones, but he said these were some of the last works that he painted. And so it's interesting. I didn't know that, but showing like some of his last works that he painted beside like some of the, in a sense, the first works, the first kind of, I guess, our marker of my professional career, kind of showing side by side. And again, it was just really special. I think like kind of, I guess, a full circle moment, where, kind of, I don't know, like when I look at it again, I get emotional, but like just that, it's kind of like, it's like father, daughter, but then, and kind of learner teacher. And then like now, like to stand kind of with him as like artist to artist, like, it meant a lot. And, and I don't know, like just the passage of time makes me, just, I think I cherish like, my relationship with my parents so much. So I think I just, anyways, I just thinking about that moment, and I don't know if it'll happen again where I'll show with him. So it was just like, meaningful. And, and then it was nice, like that series that you're talking about, Ancestral. It was fun to kind of work with him. I mean, he had no part in coming up with the idea, but it was fun to like, I knew I wanted to work with his presence, his body, like in the photograph, as kind of this ancestral figure. And, my dad's bald, so he had the perfect kind of canvas to do these projections on.
A shiny head.
I shouldn't say that, but yeah. So
yeah. Well, it's lovely in a sense to come full circle in the exhibition and in this talk through your relationship with your family, which has been a sort of very deep well of inspiration and exploration in your practice. So I think we will maybe turn it over to a few audience questions now. If you want to take a moment to mull. Oh, well, you don't even need a moment. So what we'll do is for audience questions, for the recording, you can just speak from where you are and I'll repeat it.
Okay. So I went and saw, thank you. I went and saw the exhibition before, and I live in Mexico City, and the butterflies that are present in some of the works, they arrive in the state of Mexico, and so there are similar stories of that are souls of ancestors, and less are coming every year, and some of the people who look after those particular areas being murdered, and there's a lot of political people around it. But I was wondering, I noticed there's a lot of symbolism in a lot of those photos. And outside of your ancestral history and your immediate family, I was wondering how much looking into those symbols has expanded your knowledge of the climate area and the territories and the physical space around where your family grew up, and then expanding from that when you're traveling, you found these shared stories between different communities that because of the natural link expand further than just where you're from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think over the years, as my ideas evolved and I've made a effort, it always starts out personally, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that, I think my whole life I've been trying to find belonging, to, where my dad's family's from. And I didn't grow up on the res or even in Saskatchewan where all my family's from. I grew up in Ottawa. So, far away from that side of me. So I think with my art, it's been, it's given me that almost courage, to kind of find that sense of belonging within my community because I've been able to meet people through my projects and, other community members and also family members and kind of through this mask of a project, been able to learn stories and connect and start to learn my language. And that has opened up a whole, new perspective, on life. And, our languages shape our worldviews as Nahio people. So my projects, always start with this personal place. And then, I'm inspired by all these different teachings that I've learned over the years and that I try to, bring into the works in some way. And, whether that's working with site-specific locations that, hold that memory and those stories or kind of some, event and, kind of being inspired by that and then having that, kind of be reflected within all the different, objects and things that I make and, or kind of, the stories that I tell. So, it's just been, it's a whole lifelong journey and I'm still learning a lot, but it's something that, is important to me to learn and then to, have those stories kind of shared as well, with other people. It's harder with traveling, when I go for exhibitions, to, kind of go out to smaller communities, and hear other stories. But, So I don't have experiences through exhibitions of kind of, with that. But I think, through reading and listening to other artists and other, knowledge keepers and elders from other communities, like through different, platforms. I see there's some, similarities in different areas that I travel with some of the same, kind of ideas and that I'm working with. So, yeah.
Hi. I'm curious about your face painting. Sometimes, you're white from the top or from the bottom down, and sometimes it's colors and different things. Is that part of the heritage of your Indigenous heritage, or is it something else for you?
Yeah, so it started with ancestral, where I started painting my face. Yeah, and that was really, I was painting me and my father's, bodies white, and that was kind of a technical, element that I was trying to get the image to kind of show up brighter on our skin. And then after that, I kind of moved outside of the studio space, and I started photographing outdoors in kind of the style that I'm doing now, and chose to work with my own body in my images. But I was, I needed to find a way, because I wasn't, a natural kind of subject to be in front of the camera. And I needed to kind of get out of my head and feel like it was, I kind of had to transform myself in order for me to kind of, lose myself in a way in front of the camera. So the face painting really became, this way of transforming my body into this kind of, kind of dreamlike, kind of theatrical kind of person. And sometimes I kind of experiment with different colors and ways of painting my face depending on kind of the image. And sometimes I look to historical images of people with, Indigenous people with face paint, and designs that they might use. I also looked at paintings on the side of teepees for different kind of, kind of designs and symbols that I might kind of, work with on my face. And so it just becomes, it takes different forms, and it is really kind of a bit of a mask, but then sometimes I use my bare skin, so it depends the idea what I'm going after. So
kind of as a follow-up to that, I'm curious, how has Susie Lake and Cindy Sherman influenced you?
Oh yeah. I was talking the other day just about like early influences, and especially going through school when like high school and university, and being exposed to, because I was starting even in high school, like photographing myself, oddly enough, because I was like too shy to ask someone to pose for me. So, so my teachers, I remember, being like, have you heard of blah, blah, blah. But so early influences, Tracy Moffat was an Australian artist, was a big influence. Rebecca Belmore. I know Susie Lake, amazing woman and an artist. Cindy Sherman, and Anna Mendieta. Those were like big influences, like when I was younger. I think obviously I look up to them and how they kind of work with their body, but, tell stories, they work with memory and histories, and obviously they transform their body in different ways. So, so those are definitely people that I've, look up to and get inspired by. So.
Thank you for your time and your generosity, both of you. Small gift.
Thank you.